Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a really special video for you guys and I'm excited to do it. As you guys can tell from the description, we're going to do a tutorial on how to play the My Hero Academia card game. I'm going to explain the cards, the effects, and all that stuff. I've really got into this game. I've put a little bit of money into it. I'm really having a lot of fun with it and I want to add more of it to the channel. And for all my viewers that aren't super big into card games or haven't taken the time to try it out and want to know how the mechanics are, this video is for you. I promise you guys give this game a chance, you'll get hooked. So first off, My Hero fans, this game was made for us. They literally took all the characters' quirks and basically turned them into card game mechanics for the characters. And it's dope. You pick one character, you build your deck around that character, and you have fun. There's going to be timestamps down below because this video is going to be broken up into different sections. We're going to talk about the different cards. We're going to talk about how a turn plays out. We're going to talk about some of the more intricate mechanics. And then I'm going to take you guys over to Tabletop Simulator and show you just a little bit of how a turn would normally play out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, please drop a like, subscribe if you're new. Can't wait to get more My Hero on the channel. Let's jump in and get started. So up first, we've got the different cards. The game has 5 different kinds of cards. Characters, foundations, actions, attacks, and assets. They all have their specific roles in the game, and we're gonna go through each one, explain what makes them unique, and how they fit into the game. So starting off, we have the character cards. This one is Izuku Midoriya. The characters, usually you only need one, and it'll be outside of the deck. It has its own zone, and there are certain decks that play multiple characters in their deck, but in most cases you don't, because while you can play them as normal cards, they don't really do anything for you unless you have an effect that benefits off having extra cards, such as All Might's True Form, because he can turn into the other versions of All Might. Now, here are the things that every card has, and then we'll get into what makes character cards unique. If you look at the top left hand corner of the card and you see an orange number, that is the difficulty of the card. That has to do with how we play cards. We'll get into that when we get into more of the other mechanics in a few. If you look at the bottom right, that number is called the control. Again, same deal, has to do with playing cards. We'll get into that in a minute. And if you look at the top right of the card, that is the block modifier. That is, again, more fancy stuff. The parts of this that make this unique to other cards. So if you look at the middle left of the card, you have a couple green squares with a number on it, and then a heart with a number on it. The green squares are supposed to represent your hand. The way this game works, as far as drawing every turn, you actually draw up to the hand size printed on your character. Some characters draw 5 cards every turn, up to 5 cards every turn. Some draw up to 6. Some draw up to 7. In the case of Izuku, he draws up to 6 every turn. So you get to see a buttload of cards. The number on your heart, if you couldn't tell, that's your life total. If your life total drops to 0, you lose. And you can't go over your health total. There are cards to heal you, but you can't go above whatever your printed health total is. Just like any card game, their effects are in the text box. And the last thing underneath your health are these 3 symbols. Those symbols are one of the unique things about this system. The UVS system actually has multiple licenses, not just My Hero, but they all function just about the same. Those 3 symbols are how you deck build in this game. Decks have to be a minimum of 50 cards, but there's no limit to how many you can have in the deck. And these symbols are, you basically pick one of the character symbols, and every card in your deck has to match that symbol. So they can be for other characters, they just have to have that symbol on it and you can play it in the deck. Which is cool because at a minimum, every character has at least 3 decks, so there's a lot of creativity in the game so far. Moving on, we're going to hit foundations. These are the gray cards. For my Magic players, this is basically your mana, or my Yu-Gi-Oh players, these are like continuous spells put together. When you initially play them, they don't have an effect, but once they're on your board, they usually have effects to benefit you. Also, you can use them as cost to help you pay for effects. I'll explain that when we get into playing cards. They have the same the usual things that every card has: difficulty, control, block modifier. Some of them have keywords in the middle. White keywords are just like a description of the card. For example, there's a card called Floating Around My Babies that has the word weapon. It's just part of a specific style of the card game. Next on we have attacks. These are the orange cards. These are how you deal damage. Just like every other card: difficulty, control, shield. Block modifier. But if you look at the middle right of the card, this is where things start to get interesting. So attack cards have a circle with an arrow and a number. That is the block zone and speed of the attack. That has to do with the blocking of the attack. We'll get into that a little later. And then underneath it, the little explosion with a number, that's how much damage the attack does if it hits your opponent. Some attacks have keywords. The keywords determine what type of attack it is, which some cards only interact with certain kind of attacks. Like they'll say if this card is if this attack is a punch attack, and then they also have some keyword skills. Again, we'll get into that in a little bit. Up next, we have actions. Actions are blue cards. These are our instances. These are instants or quick play spells. Some of them can be played on either player's turn as long as you beat the timing for the effect and play it in the proper time. And usually they remove themselves afterwards, so you only get to use them so many times. And then lastly, we have assets. Assets are these green cards. They get played and they basically go to your field and they stay on your field. They usually have beneficial effects that you can use, but they cannot be used to help pay costs. So you have to decide if you want to give up playing a potential mana or having this card's effect. So we're going to start talking about the win cons of the game. There's two main ones. The first is to reduce your opponent's life to 0. That's obvious. The second one, you can win by deck out, but it's very difficult in this game. For one, there's no limit to how many cards you can have in a deck. But when you run out of cards in your deck, you take your discard, you shuffle it up, it becomes your new deck, and then you banish the top 10 cards of your deck. When you can't do that anymore, then you lose. So it takes forever to deck somebody out. It's not necessarily a viable strategy. The turns of this game are pretty simple. They have 3 phases. The phases do have sub-steps. We're going to go into a little bit of detail about each one. The first phase is the start phase. It has 3 steps. The ready step, where readying your cards, untapping them. Because some of the cards have to be tapped to pay for costs. In this game, that's called committing. Then you have your review step. So like I said, at the beginning of your turn, you draw up to the number of cards that are printed on your character. But before you do that, you have what's called a review. Review basically says you can discard a card and then draw your hand. The reason you do that is so you can filter. Basically, a good example of that is, let's say I have 3 cards. I ready my stuff. I don't review. I go to my draw step. I draw 3 cards because I already have 3. But if I want to, during my review step, I can discard a card. So now when I go to my draw step, I get to draw another card. It's just a way to help filter out your hand. The combat phase is kind of like your main phase / battle phase / this is where you do things. You play your cards, you play your attacks. Everything gets played here. And then we have the end phase. Now during the end phase, the way it works is starting with the turn player, you go backwards from the number of cards you played. In order, you'd go back and basically put each card where it's supposed to go. Foundations move to and assets move to your stage. Actions go to the discard. Attacks either go to the discard or they go underneath your character face down to become another resource called momentum. That only happens if the attack dealt damage. I'll get into specifics of what that means in a second. But if it didn't deal damage, it goes to the discard with your actions. Now, we're going to get a little more into the mechanics of the game, especially the combat phase. The combat phase is where all the magic happens. So during the combat phase, this is where you start playing cards. To play a card, you choose the card out of your hand that you want to play. You have to look at the top left number, the difficulty. To check to see if the card actually plays, you have to mill the top card of your deck up. For anybody that doesn't know what that means, it means you have to send the top card of your deck to the discard. That's when you check the bottom number, the control. as long as the control number is equal to or greater than the difficulty of the card you're trying to play, the card plays. For example, passing the torch has a difficulty of 2. Let us say that I mill Evil Gaze. Evil Gaze has a difficulty. Evil Gaze has a control of 5. So my passing the torch plays. Now again, foundations don't do anything when you're in your card pool. By the way, the card pool is a zone where you actually start playing cards. But once it moves to your stage, which is your field, that's when its effect will be live. In this case, it can commit itself to draw a card. I'll get into the timing in a second. Now, while that's all well and good, there's one more aspect to playing cards. It's called progressive difficulty. The whole card game is based off fighting games, and just like the longer combos are more difficult to do and take more skill, every single card you play gets progressively harder and harder to play. For example, the passing of the torch we just played was a 2 difficult. Now, if we play another card after that, it's going to get +1 to its difficulty because that's the progressive difficulty. So let's do a quick string with some of the cards I've shown you. Back Alley Haymaker, that has a difficulty of 5. Check for that, we get a 5, the card plays. Now we play Passing the Torch. Normally that's a 2, but because it's our second card, it gets a +1. So now we need a 3 check to play it, and so on and so forth. Each one gets more and more difficult. So it goes +1, +2, +3, +4, because you're allowed to play as many cards in a turn as you want, as long as you can keep on passing the checks. Now I know that sounds crazy to y'all. It sounds like nothing but luck, but there is a way to mitigate it. So your foundations, this is why they're so important, and why I said they also serve as mana. If you need to check a card and you fail a check, or you're going to fail a check, you can use your foundations to help you pass the check. For example, let's say we're going to play Back Alley Haymaker on a 5 check. We check, we hit another copy of Back Alley Haymaker, which if you look at the bottom right, has a control of 3, so we're 2 short. You can tap 2 foundations, and that covers the missing control to pass that difficulty card. So now our Back Alley Haymaker plays, and we can continue playing the game. So it's all about managing the resources. You build up a bunch of foundations to make sure that you can get your cards through. If you pass the check, then you get to save your foundations for later. If it looks like you're gonna fail, you can commit your foundations. But it also there's some downsides to committing your foundations. They're not just free mana. For example, in this game, any card you commit has no effect while it's committed, unless it says playable while committed. It'll be printed on the card. If it doesn't say that while it's committed, you can't use the effect until you untap it at the beginning of your next turn. Cool thing is, you can also use your character, which sometimes sucks because you lose out on really powerful effects that the characters have, but at least you can keep playing the game. If you fail a check, 100% can't play it, you have no cards to tap, and you just fail a check, your turn the card fails, it goes to the discard, and your turn automatically ends. So that's something to really, really think about. Now, on the flip side, blocking. I'm putting these together because playing a card goes into blocking, and it gets a little... Blocking's probably the most difficult part of this game. To block, you have to look at the speed of an attack. And remember I said all the cards have a block modifier in the top right corner? You have to add the speed of the attack to your block modifier, and that's what you need to check to block the attack. Sounds simple, right? But you also have to take into consideration your progressive difficulty. Because as you block cards, each one's going to get +1 more difficult, just like when you're playing cards on your turn. So if I block my first attack, and I'm trying to block a second attack, that attack's going to get +1. On top of the speed of my opponent's attack, on top of the block modifier of my card. So here's another example. We've been using Back Alley Haymaker, so we're going to keep using it. It's got a speed of 4. So I'm going to attempt to block it with Evil Gaze, which has a block modifier of 1, so I need to check 5 for it. But if this is my second block, it's a 6. If it's my third, it's a 7. And that doesn't even take into account any potential speed bonuses, because you can actually increase the speed and damage of attacks with effects, which is the next part we're going to talk about. The other part of blocking is the block zone. So if you look at Back Alley Haymaker, it has that orange circle with an arrow pointing to the middle. Like I said, it's based off fighting games, so the attacks have an attack zone. They're either high attacks, mid attacks, or low attacks. Like if you're going for an overhead, going for a sweep, or just straight up attacking in a fighting game. When you're blocking, you have to take into account the zone. If your zone does not perfectly match the type of attack your opponent is swinging at you with, for example, Evil Gaze and Back Alley are both mids, so it does fit. But if it say it was a high block, which you can tell by the color of the shield what kind of block it is. Red is for highs, orange is for mids, yellow is for lows. If you block with the same color, it's considered fully blocked. You take no damage, unless an effect says otherwise. If you block with one that's different, then you still take half the damage rounded up. So this attack does 5 damage, so you would still take 3. Now, as far as blocking goes, there is another specific, one last thing about it, and this is what I said is the most complicated part of the game. You can, when you're blocking an attack, you can only block it with either the same zone or one that's one away from it. So if your opponent's attacking with a high, you can only block that with either a high block or a mid block. You can't block it with a low block, and vice versa. Mids are a little different because you can technically block them with everything because they're always one away from something. That's it for blocking. Like I said, I personally think it's the most complicated part of the game. It takes the most thought. Now, how the combat phase actually plays when you're going into attacks. You play your attack just like you would any other card. And once you play the attack, unless the card has a keyword called flash, which I'm going to make a separate video explaining all the keywords, you go into what's called the enhanced step. This is where the battle blitz starts coming in. So the enhanced step is where you buff or debuff an attack, and you and your opponent have the chance to mess with each other's attack. So the person playing the attack gets first enhance. It's the turn player. Enhances, unless they say otherwise, can all be used one per attack. So unless it says it can be used multiple times in an attack, or if it says once per turn, you can use them on every single attack, but only one time per attack. In the case of Izuku, if you look at his first effect, it says enhance. Discard one card, you can give this punch attack plus 1 speed, plus 3 damage. That right there is an enhance. Now, once you do your enhance, it passes to your opponent. They have the chance to enhance, because there are enhances that can debuff your attack, make you lose speed, make you lose damage. Once they decide to enhance, or pass enhance, it goes back to the turn player. They can do another enhance. And it continues to go back and forth until both players pass. Once both players pass, as soon as they pass, you proceed to blocking. Enhancers are one of the biggest types of effects in this game. The other one is responses. Responses, if you look at Izuku again, it has a green response. Basically means responses are, if this happens, you can do this. They're not mandatory. You can choose not to use them, but that's how they work. Last terminology I forget before we actually move over to Tabletop Simulator is form. Whenever a player takes an action, that's referred to as a form. Some effects are forms. They basically take the place of you playing a card to use said effect. And lastly, one of the only rules I don't really like, you can't just pass turn. You have to attempt to play a form. If you don't attempt to play a form, you basically have to reveal your hand and show that you can't play a form. And then you still have to discard a card after that. So it's good of you to always try and play cards. Hey guys, I'm sorry, editing's difficult here. As I'm running through the video, editing it, I realized that I missed a few key topics that I need to make sure I told you guys about. One of the big ones is paying cost. We have 3 main ways that we pay cost in this game. One is committing cards, that is basically turning them sideways, as we kind of went over a little bit. Remember that when you commit a card, you lose its effect until it can be ready back up. Second, we have flipping. Basically, you turn a card face down. Once you turn it face down, it basically loses its identity, but it still counts as a card in whatever zone it's in. If it's a foundation in your stage, you can still use it to help you pay for your checks, but everything else on the card is blank. And the other is momentum. Again, you build up momentum by landing attacks. You can pay your momentum to use certain effects. That is the cost you need to pay for them. Sorry for the misstep. I hope this helps with the video. But that's all the basic rules, guys. I'm gonna jump over to Tabletop Simulator, and I'm gonna show you guys a little something. All right, guys, this is Tabletop Simulator. Somebody was able to make the My Hero map in Tabletop Simulator. As you see, we got our card pool for playing cards. Our editing Zaffikel here again, guys. One more thing I forgot. I never explained the actual map, and I'm really embarrassed that I didn't. But using Tabletop Simulator, I can run through it real quick. The card pool is what it's called. That's the zone where we actually put cards into play, or attempt to play cards. The staging area is basically your field. This is where your foundations and assets move to at the end of your turn. And then of course you have your deck zone, your discard pile, your character, all that stuff. Again, sorry for the misstep. This is my first time doing a video like this, and I did it unscripted. But I hope it helps. Let's keep going. Staging area, character, momentum. That's off to the side, but normally that's underneath your character. So remember, that's if your attacks deal damage. So this is my Stain deck. I love this thing. He's a 6-hand, 29 health character. He has a really cool enhance and a really disgusting response. Unfortunately, I don't have an opponent to play against, but I'm going to show you the basic flow of a turn. Now, I'm going to say I'm going first. Normally, you would roll dice to decide who goes first. So, going first, you start off with your character committed. Now, this game does have a mulligan, but it's different depending on if you're going first or second. So, it benefits both. They try to make it as 50-50 as possible. So, we're going to start off with our 6-hand character. We do not get to review going first. We do get to review going second. But, the mulligan for going first, you look at your hand, you don't feel like it has enough for you to make a board state, you can actually bottom deck your entire hand and draw the same number of cards. But that is a risk, because if you're stuck with one foundation, that's what you got to play with. But if you draw your second hand and it has 0 foundations, you can reveal it and get a third mulligan. Going second, the mulligan is different. Going second, you get what's called a partial mulligan. Basically, you draw however many cards are for your hand size, look at them, you can pick and choose what goes to the bottom of your deck, and then draw off the top the same number. It's a little bit better, but you're also going second. Going first is still advantageous because you get to see more cards. Because I'm getting my 6 cards, and then I'm going to get another up to 6 cards on my next turn. So, we're going to just go out. Other than that, come in character committed. I draw my 6 cards. I'm not going to mulligan this hand. I actually really like this hand. So, I'm going to show you guys how the turns would flow. So, I go to my combat phase. I'm going to start playing cards. I'm going to start off with Hero Killer. As you see by the top right or the top left number, Hero Killer is a 2 difficulty. So we're going to discard the top card, check the bottom number. It is a 5, so Hero Killer is good. Now we're going to play Nothing to See here on a 2 check, but because it's our second card, it gets +1 to the difficulty because it's progressive. So now it's a 3 check. So, bam, we hit another 5, we're good. Next up, we're going to play Quick to Act on a 0, but it's our third card, so +2 to the check. I need a 3. I'm sorry, I need a 2. Bam, it's good. We're going to play another Quick to Act on a 3 this time. Bam, we check the 5. And then we're going to try Keen Observation on a 4. Now, see here, I needed a 4. I checked a 3. Most attacks are 3 or lower. And that means this card failed. So what happens with this card is it goes to the discard, and my turn immediately ends because I failed that check. If I got that check, that would have been dope. But now we take all these and they move to our stage. Now, again, they really try hard to balance it out. No player is allowed to attack on their first turn. So we have an attack in hand, but we can't use it. Even our opponent going second isn't allowed to attack us. So now our opponent goes. Now it sounds like it sucks. They're seeing less cards. They're going second. But they got, not only did they get the partial mulligan, they come in with their character uncommitted, and since they can use their character to help pay for costs, they're allowed to play more cards. Plus, they get a review. So even if they end up with a card they don't like, they can still discard it and draw another card. And they get an extra card because they're going second. So there's some characters in this game with 7 cards in hand. They end up getting 8 cards to start their turn with. It gets psycho. But now my opponent goes, they play all their whatever foundations they want to play until they're done, and then it passes back to me. So now I ready my character. I'm not going to review, I want to keep this card. And now I draw up to my hand size. Bam. And we got pretty solid hand. Now, because of the way Stain works, I'm going to attack in a way I normally wouldn't. I'll show you something real quick. See this? These keywords? Stain's all about the weapons. It doesn't really, having the weapon keyword doesn't really change anything. It just, certain effects only work with weapons. Now, keywords. Keywords have special effects if they're in color. Orange keywords are enhances that you use during the enhance step. Greens are responses. Blues are continuous. This card has combo weapon. Basically, in order to get its enhance, I can only get it after playing another weapon attack. But you want this one because of the way Stain works. So we're going to start off with Piercing Descent. This card is a 4 difficulty, so we're going to check. And we got a 5, we're good to go. So Piercing Descent, let's look at his stats. See the red circle on the right with a 2? That is a 2 high attack for 5 damage. So my opponent needs to block with a high to completely block it, or block with a mid to half block it. But now that we play the attack, we're going to move to our enhance step. Since we're the turn player, we get the first enhance. We're going to use Stain's enhance. Your weapon attack gets +1 speed, and if it deals damage, your rival loses 1 health. So we're going to grab this dice over here. Put it over here. This is going to be our marker for our speed. So we're getting +1 speed. So right now it's a 3 speed high. Now that I didn't enhance, it passes to my opponent. They get the chance to enhance. So my opponent can use, say they play their foundations that reduce my speed, reduce my damage. Commit one. They can force commit. Some cards can force commit your foundations. So let's say they reduce my speed by 1. So now I lose the plus. Okay, cool. I can use this card. Nothing to see here. I commit. Commit again means to tap. Commit. Your mid or fury attack is completely blocked. Your rival destroys 1 foundation. Foundation destruction can get crazy. Also, see how it has the keyword unique? That means I can only have 1 copy of that on the board at any given time. So we're going to commit this. And now if my opponent wants to block this, because it does have the fury keyword, they have to destroy 1 of their own foundations. So if my opponent plays a block, it's fine. The card did play, so it stays in the card pool. Attacks, their enhances can be used while they're in the card pool. They're not like foundations. That's only foundations and assets have to wait till they're in the stage. So now we're going to move on to our next attack. We're going to use Laceration. Laceration, it's a 4 check, but because it's +1 difficulty, it's a 5. So bam, we checked at 3. Oh no. Now we have to commit 2 to be able to let this card play, or our turn ends. So we're going to commit Hero Killer and Quick to Act. So we paid the cost. The card now plays. So this card has a Stain combo enhance. So it can only be used by Stain, because you can actually have this card in other decks as long as it matches that one of the symbols. But that effect only works for Stain. It says if this attack is completely blocked, it still deals 1 damage. So no matter what, this poke's gonna go through, unless there's an effect that completely stops all damage. There are those in the game. It's second, so that's my enhance. It passes to my opponent. They enhance. It passes back to me. Now I can use Stain. Give it +1 speed, and if it deals a damage, it burns. Stain's deck is cool because it has a lot of bleed damage or burn damage. So it pokes, but then you get a bunch of extra damage. It's cool. But now it passes back to my opponent. They enhance. It passes back to me. Now I can use its other enhance. I remove a weapon from my discard from the game. I got one right there, and I get to burn them for 1. So I just automatically bled them. Now they get to go. Comes back to me. I send it. They block it. Let's say they block it. It deals its 1 damage. Now I have another attack I can play, but I also have to worry about blocking next turn. So if I want to stop, I can actually try and play more foundations. So we're going to try and play this Excited for Blood as our 3rd card. It gets +2 to the difficulty, so it's on a 5. Bam, we got it. Now we're going to try and play Nervous Habit, also on a 5. Bam, we got it. Now I can try and play Fruits, but I also have to think about blocking. So we're just going to pass our turn, put these on our stage. We're going to say that this attack, well, we got to go backwards. So since we know this attack did at least 1 damage, it goes face down under our character. This attack we're going to say blocked, so it goes to the discard. So now we have a momentum. Again, when you're playing the actual card game, it would be directly under your character. And certain effects, you would use momentum as cost. We actually have a card in our deck that says you pay momentum and make your opponent's card their check. It messes with their check. which is what Stain's whole thing is. What Stain's, the way they made his Blood Curdle quirk into the card game, basically, after you've dealt a damage, anytime in the game, you have to at least deal a damage to gain the effect. But basically, when my opponent checks to play a card, I can commit Stain to make their check lose 3. But if they fail the check, they get to keep playing. They don't. It doesn't just end their turn. But you can basically make it harder to play the cards they want to play. But now it passes to my opponent. Let's say they attack me with a mid. I'm gonna block with a low. I'll say the speed of that card attack is 6, so I need a 7. So I check. I get a 5. I gotta commit 2. Bam, bam. But since it was a mid, I take half damage. I'll say it was 8, and I'll take 4. Sorry, I never set my health over here. So Stain starts at 29, so we'll just stand at 25 now. They play another attack. I can't block it. I'll just take it. I lose 10. And then my opponent does what I did, and he builds more foundations. And it passes back to me. I uncommit everything. And then I drop to my hand size. Actually, I would go to review this one card, and now I get to draw 6 cards. Bam. And now we have another 3 attacks. Oh, that's what we do. During the end phase, after your opponent clears their cards, then the blocking player clears theirs. Not mistaken. But that's basically it. You just go back and forth until either you or your opponent is dead. I'm going to do another video again talking about keywords. There are a lot, and they do get a little confusing without an explanation, and I'll be happy to give that to you guys. Like I said, the game's a lot of fun. I'm seriously hooked. I've been going to tournaments almost every week and just learning a whole lot about the game. There's a bunch of content creators out there you guys should check out. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please let me know in the comments. Drop a like on the video. If you guys want to catch me on social media, those links will be down below. If you guys want to play with me, if you guys want to try tabletop with me, I would be glad to teach you how to play the game. But that's it for me. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.
We gon' ghost them when we pull up with them shells. Hop out the surface, we giving out them L's. I'm with that psycho, we raising hell. I'm motorcycle, no Akira, I'm out for mail. Proxy in your body, we gon' turn them into